If you grew up or paid close attention to the NBA in the 2000s, there's one name that you heard more often than any other.
Kobe Bryant! Kobe Bryant!
Kobe Bryant!
Kobe Bryant!
Bryant for the win! Bang!
While young and flashy players stole the limelight temporarily, there wasn't a more dominant player during the era than Kobe Bryant. And I would go on to say there are a few people who had a life like number 24 did during that time. You might just remember him for being a great basketball player, and while that is certainly true, in his unexpected shortened life, he did amazing things both on and off the court, and sometimes they weren't always good. Join me today as we attempt to summarize the extraordinary accomplishments and life of one of the greatest people to ever play the game, and one of the biggest influencers of the 2000s. My name is Lee Brees, and this is Modern Legends, Episode 2. Kobe Bean Bryant was born on August 23, 1978 to Pamela Cox and Joe Bryant in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His father, Joe, played a total of 16 seasons in the NBA and was only 24 when his son was born. The name Kobe came from a Japanese beef, which his parents had read on a restaurant menu, and his middle name Bean was short for Jelly Bean, which was his dad's nickname as a player. Kobe had two older sisters, and the family was raised Catholic. He recalls that the Los Angeles Lakers were his favorite team growing up, despite his dad having never played for them and having no ties to Los Angeles. He took up basketball from a young age, and when he was 6, his father, Joe, relocated the family to Reggio Calabria in Italy, where he had signed to play for a professional team there. The family would move around every few years within Italy as Kobe's dad signed with different teams, and the Bryant family would call the nation their home until Kobe was 13 years old. He learned to speak fluent Italian, and much of his interest in basketball blossomed from European basketball films. Around age 8, he began taking basketball seriously, and his grandfather would mail him tapes of NBA games for him to study. During the summer, he would return to the U.S. to play in summer basketball leagues. Once his father's playing days were over, the family returned to Philadelphia, where his dad had gotten a job as a high school basketball coach, and Kobe enrolled in 8th grade at Ballackinwood Middle School. Later on, Kobe would be the first freshman in decades to start for Lower Merion High School's varsity basketball team. Yet the group would only achieve a 4-20 record, but by the end of his career, the Aces achieved a whopping 77-13 combined record and won the Pennsylvania High School State Basketball Championship Kobe's senior year in 1996, and he graduated as Southeast Pennsylvania's all-time leading scorer. He was also the Naismith High School Player of the Year, Gatorade Men's National Basketball Player of the Year, and McDonald's All-American. Bryant's junior year was when scouts began to take notice, as he averaged 31 points per game and earned the Pennsylvania Player of the Year, while also being nominated for Parade All-American and the Adidas ABCD camp, where he won the Senior MVP award and attracted the attention of both college and professional scouts. While he was still in high school, 76ers coach John Lucas invited Kobe to practice and scrimmage with the team, and after Kevin Garnett went in the first round of the 1995 NBA draft, Kobe began to consider skipping his college playing career and going directly to the pros. By his senior year, his national profile had risen significantly, and Kobe would take R&B singer Brandy to his senior prom, and ultimately 17-year-old Kobe Bryant decided to take a chance at being the 6th NBA player of all time to be drafted directly out of high school. The 1996 NBA Draft was one of the most anticipated in the history of the league, with the likes of Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Steve Nash, and Jermaine O'Neal, among many other sought-after players, ready to join the league. Bryant worked out with many teams prior to the draft, including the Los Angeles Lakers, his childhood dream team and only real consideration. Despite his age, many already saw great potential. Celtics general manager John Volk said after watching Bryant work out with his team, quote, "If you closed your eyes and thought a little bit, you might have thought you were watching Michael Jordan." However, Arn Tellem, Bryant's agent, was set on getting his client to the Los Angeles Lakers. Leading up to the draft, Lakers general manager Jerry West and his team had been wanting to free up salary cap space to make an offer for free agent Shaquille O'Neal, and in 1996, they held the 24th overall pick, which meant they would likely be out of contention for many of the top players. The day before the draft, the Lakers were able to come to terms with the Charlotte Hornets, who had no interest in drafting the young Kobe Bryant, as they agreed to trade their 13th first-round selection for Lakers center Vlade Divac. The trade almost never happened, as Divac debated retirement after the draft, but eventually dropped his threat, and the trade was finalized on July 9, 1996. The 50th NBA Draft was held on June 26, 1996, at Continental Airlines Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The event would go on to produce 11 NBA All-Stars, 3 NBA MVPs, and 8 future All-NBA team members. Many regarded the draft as one of the best of all time, with most experts rating it the third best draft class overall. Allen Iverson of Georgetown was selected first overall by the Philadelphia 76ers, and Kobe Bryant went as expected as the 13th overall pick, with the Los Angeles Lakers informing the Charlotte Hornets who to select. Kobe Bryant officially became not only the 6th player of all time to be drafted out of high school, but was the first guard to ever do so. And this would prove to be only the first of a long list of firsts for the future 5-time NBA champion. The 17-year-old had to have his parents co-sign his contract with the Lakers immediately following the draft, but was able to sign on his own before the NBA season began, and the two sides agreed to a 3-year rookie contract worth $3.5 million. This would prove to be peanuts, however, as shortly after he would also sign an endorsement deal with Adidas worth $48 million. Bryant debuted in the Summer Pro League in Long Beach, California, in front of a standing-room-only crowd, and soon Jerry West and Lakers coach Del Harris confirmed their suspicions that they had a once-in-a-generation player. Given his age and the team's current situation, though, Bryant would spend most of his first season coming off the bench and playing limited minutes. He made his official Lakers debut in the team's second overall game of the 96-97 season against the Minnesota Timberwolves on November 3, 1996, becoming the second youngest player to ever play in an NBA game at 18 years, 72 days. He would come off the bench, playing a total of 6 minutes, 22 seconds, going scoreless, and his only documented stat would be a turnover for traveling on his second ever NBA possession. By the end of his first season, he averaged 15.5 minutes per game and was selected to play in the Rookie Challenge on All-Star Weekend, winning the 1997 Slam Dunk Contest and was named to the NBA All-Rookie Second Team. In the 1997 NBA playoffs, the Lakers reached the Western Conference semifinals against the Utah Jazz. In Game 5 of the series, with the Jazz leading 3-1, Kobe Bryant became thrust into the spotlight as starter Byron Scott missed the game with a sprained wrist. Robert Horry was ejected during the game, and Shaquille O'Neal fouled out with 1:46 remaining in the game. Bryant airballed the winning basket in the fourth quarter and subsequently airballed 3 3-pointers in overtime, and the Utah Jazz ended his first season with a final score of 98-93. In his second season, he would continue to come off the bench and was runner-up for the NBA Sixth Man of the Year award, and through fan voting, he became one of 4 Lakers named NBA All-Stars. He averaged 15.4 points per game, which was the highest of any non-starter. The Lakers would go on to lose once again to the Utah Jazz 4-0 in the Western Conference Finals. Kobe's third season was shortened to only 50 games due to a player lockout, but the 20-year-old found himself starting every single game, as he was already being compared to Laker great Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan. At the end of the season, he was awarded with a 6-year contract extension worth $70 million, but the elusive goal of winning an NBA championship still evaded Kobe and the Lakers, as they lost to the San Antonio Spurs 4-0 in the Western Conference semifinals. Later in 1999, 21-year-old Bryant met 17-year-old Vanessa Lane while he was working on a music album. Not only was Kobe a standout NBA player, but just like everyone else in the 90s, he was also a member of a rap group, and they would end up getting signed by Sony Entertainment, but it was later revealed that Sony was just trying to capitalize on Kobe's NBA fame. Lane was a background dancer in the East Sida's music video for their song G'd Up. It's not known exactly how the two came across each other while working in the same building, but the two would start instantly dating and would become engaged in May 2000. Lane was a student at Marina High School in Huntington Beach, California, but due to the media attention, she decided to complete her senior year through independent study. The two would marry on April 18, 2001, at St. Edward Confessor Catholic Church in Dana Point, California. Neither Bryant's parents, sisters, agent, nor his Laker teammates would attend the wedding, as his parents took great issue with him marrying so young and to a woman who wasn't a Black American, and he became estranged from his family for a short time after that. The wedding precluded Bryant's participation on the 2000 USA Olympic basketball team. Meanwhile, on the court, Phil Jackson, who had led the Chicago Bulls during the Michael Jordan era, was hired as Lakers head coach. Bryant would start off the following season with a hand injury that left him sidelined, but once he was back, the combo of O'Neal and Bryant was ready to take over the NBA. The Lakers finished the 1999-2000 season 67-15 and went into the NBA playoffs as the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. In the first round, Bryant and Shaq would face a fair competition from the in-state rival Sacramento Kings, but won 3-2 before defeating the Phoenix Suns 4-2 in the second round. The Lakers would meet their match in the Western Conference Finals, but with key performances from Shaq and Bryant, the team made its first appearance in the NBA Finals in 12 years, and the first of Kobe's career. The 2000 NBA Finals featured the still young Kobe Bryant up against the veteran All-Star Reggie Miller and a strong cast of supporting members. Regardless, the Lakers were still the better team and were awarded home court advantage, blowing out the Pacers 104-87 in Game 1 of the series. Game 2 would be much closer, but Bryant would suffer a significant ankle injury after tripping over Pacers player Jalen Rose's foot, which Rose later claimed was intentional. Kobe would miss Game 3 of the series and return to Game 4, but his ankle injury substantially hindered his performance. Yet the Lakers won in overtime, 120-118. The Pacers would dominate Game 5, winning 120-87 in Indianapolis, and their strong resurgence would continue into Game 6, as now the final series standing was 3 games for the Lakers, 2 games for the Pacers. The Indiana Pacers would lead most of the game, but the crew of Brian Shaw, Derek Fisher, Robert Horry, and Rick Fox refused to go away, and midway through the fourth quarter, Shaq would shoot an off-balance shot which gave his team the lead, to which they never rescinded. And finally, the young NBA star with high expectations and high hopes won an NBA championship at the age of 21. The following season would bring equally high expectations. However, the dynamic duo of Shaq and Kobe would begin to have disagreements with each other, and the team would only win 56 games that year, 11 less than the year prior, but went 15-1 in the NBA playoffs, defeating the Philadelphia 76ers 4-1 in the 2001 NBA Finals, and brought home the franchise's second championship in 2 seasons. Lakers' success wouldn't stop there, and Bryant would play the most games yet in a season at 80 contests the following year, and went on to win his first NBA All-Star MVP award at the end of the 2002 All-Star Game. Kobe would likely have played all 82 games that season, but he was suspended for a brief time after he threw a punch at Reggie Miller of the Indiana Pacers in a March matchup between the two teams. The team would finish with a similar record as the year before and easily move through the first rounds of the NBA playoffs. Kobe Bryant and the Lakers would face a tough matchup in the Western Conference Finals as their in-state rival, Sacramento Kings, would force the series to 7 games. They would survive Game 7 and easily sweep the New Jersey Nets in the 2002 NBA Finals. And the Lakers had now won 3 consecutive NBA championships. You may have expected it, but no one anticipated the reality of a three-peat, and Kobe now had 3 championships to his name, yet was only 23 years old. He would finish 3rd the following year in MVP voting, but 2003 would be one of the most disastrous years for Bryant and his public image. In the offseason of 2003, the 3-time NBA champion was scheduled to have knee surgery at a hospital in Vail, Colorado. He checked into the Lodge and Spa at Cordillera in nearby Edwards, Colorado on June 30th, 2003, with the surgery scheduled for July 2nd. On the day of the surgery, Eagle County Sheriff investigators confronted Bryant about an accusation of inappropriate behavior from a 19-year-old staff member at the hotel, to which he immediately denied. The investigators then informed Bryant that the accuser had taken a test that yielded physical evidence, and Bryant then confessed to a consensual encounter. He then voluntarily submitted to testing and interviews with police, and 2 days later, a warrant was issued for his arrest, and Bryant would fly back to Eagle County from Los Angeles to voluntarily surrender to police. He was immediately released on $25,000 bond, but news of the arrest broke 2 days later, and on July 18th, he was formally charged in the case. Later that day, he held a press conference to explain his side of the story. After spending $200,000 preparing for trial, the prosecutors dropped the ensuing court case when the accuser wasn't willing to testify. The accuser then sued Bryant in civil court, to which the parties settled for an undisclosed amount, but estimated to have been around $2.5 million. Only 3 out of the 5 brand deals who had dropped him after his arrest would reinstate their contracts, and the event permanently damaged the star's reputation and likely forever changed his relationship with his family, to which he and his wife Vanessa had just announced the birth of their first child, Natalia, in January 2003, which had brought Kobe and the Bryant family back together from their 2-year estrangement. Meanwhile, on the basketball court, the Lakers returned to the 2004 NBA Finals, but were upset by the Detroit Pistons 4-1, as the Pistons won their first championship since 1990, coming off a scandal of their own. The Lakers would then go through some restructuring, as significant players like Shaq were traded away, and younger players were brought in, but most notably Phil Jackson, now a 9-time NBA champion, stepped down as head coach, opting not to renew his contract, and Rudy Tomjanovich took over. Kobe Bryant was at the end of his contract with the Lakers, and the Los Angeles Clippers offered him a $100 million 6-year contract, but Bryant denied the offer and then re-signed a 7-year contract worth $136.4 million with the Lakers. The 2004-2005 NBA season for Bryant would prove to be emotionally unrelenting, as the media and fans would not move on from the scandal. To make matters even worse, Phil Jackson wrote a book titled The Last Season, A Team in Search of Its Soul, which articulated harsh criticisms of Bryant as a player, as he was uncoachable, and further outlined the difficulties and onslaught Bryant's assault case had on the team. With the world against them, the Lakers finished with the worst record yet of Kobe's career at 34-48 and missed the playoffs for the first time in 10 years, and he continued to kick himself in the foot as he would voluntarily start public feuds in the offseason with Ray Allen and Karl Malone. In the middle of the season, Tomjanovich suddenly resigned, citing health concerns, and Lakers assistant Frank Hamlin took over as head coach for the rest of the year. But with the 2005 NBA season approaching, Phil Jackson suddenly decided to return as head coach, and Bryant endorsed his return as the two amended their differences. The season marked a positive transition in Kobe's career and behavior, and he also settled differences with Shaq, and the two were seen laughing together during their encounters throughout the season. Bryant would go on to have the best statistical season of his career and would break the franchise record for points in a game with 81 in a matchup with the Toronto Raptors, which was second to only Wilt Chamberlain's 1962 100-point game. He would finish the season averaging more than 35 points per game, winning the NBA scoring title, but the Lakers would finish 7th in the West and lost in the first round of the NBA playoffs, just after the birth of Kobe's second daughter, Gianna, in May 2006. After the end of the 05-06 season, Kobe announced that he would be changing his jersey number from 8 to 24. He said his original high school number was 24 and wanted it as a rookie, but it was unavailable. He thought about 33 as his number, but it had been retired with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He wore the number 143 at the Adidas camp he attended in high school and got his original Laker number 8 from combining those numbers. Now that 24 was available, he wanted to finally make the switch. Given the number change, Bryant's on-court performance, and mostly recovered popularity, his jersey became the number 1 selling NBA jersey in the US and China once again in 2007, and despite losing in the first round of the playoffs for the second year in a row, things seem to finally be coming back around for the now 28-year-old star. In 2008, he would continue to break NBA records, be the most popular player in the NBA, finally be able to participate on the Olympic basketball team, and also finally win an NBA MVP award, which would be the only one of his career. Kobe would play most of the season with injuries, but never missed a game, and the Lakers finished first in the West. They would reach the 2008 NBA Finals, Bryant's first without Shaq, but would fall to the star-studded Celtics 4-2. Nonetheless, the Lakers would win the NBA Finals the following 2 seasons. The Lakers' 2010 NBA Finals victory over the Boston Celtics would prove to be the 5th and final championship of Kobe's career. He had previously stated he wanted to win 6 championships to match Michael Jordan, but later fell short of that goal. He won Finals MVP, and the next several years would become the falling action of his career, as Lakers head coach Phil Jackson would finally step away from basketball for good in 2011. In the same year, Kobe's wife Vanessa filed for divorce, but 2 years and much drama later, the couple announced they had called it off. Despite Kobe's still good physical condition, the Lakers simply weren't the same team anymore from the prior decade. He began to play more minutes per game as the franchise relied on him to keep them afloat, and after playing every single minute for 7 straight games in April of 2013, he tore his ACL, which sidelined him for 8 months. And the 2013 bid would prove to be the final winning season of his career. He returned in December of 2013 and signed a 2-year contract worth $48 million, keeping him the highest paid player in the league, but given his age, he was never going to play the same again, and the end of his career was injury-prone. On November 9, 2015, after a franchise and league record 20 seasons with the Lakers, 37-year-old Kobe Bryant announced that this would be his final year as an NBA player, and requested that opposing teams not hold ceremonies or award him with gifts as he finished his final season. Despite this request, Bryant would be met by standing ovations and tribute videos at most of his final games on opposing courts. Most of the records Bryant was now setting were oldest to do this and oldest to do that, but his record-breaking career would continue through his final game on April 13, 2016, when at 37 years and 234 days old, he became the oldest player to score 60 or more points in an NBA game. The Lakers would win 101-96, but finished the season at Bryant's career worst 17-65, the opposite of his first finals run, and his playing days were now over. It was so hard to fathom what the NBA had just lost, and it was certainly understood by all that the game was never going to be the same as the Kobe Bryant days. He spent most of his early retirement being a dad. His family welcomed a 3rd daughter in December 2016, and he also pursued some other projects that would prove to be record-breaking. In 2018, he made a short film entitled Dear Basketball with his production company Granity Studios, to which Bryant became the first African American to win an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film and became the first professional athlete to ever be nominated for an Academy Award. To round off 2018, he began to also write, produce, and host the television series Detail on ESPN featuring in-depth NBA analysis. Throughout his life and career, Bryant started his own charity, donated to many other charities, and said he wanted to have more than just a successful basketball career. He and his wife were founding donors to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, to which Bryant donated his jersey he wore during the 2008 NBA Finals. He also granted more than 200 requests for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Being retired from basketball, he had plenty of dreams and new things he wanted to accomplish. He held stakes in many businesses, including starting a venture capital firm. He had his production studio, an athletic training business, and had plans to publish more children's books and already had many deals in place for their publishing. With so much of his life still to look forward to, the world would soon shed tears looking back at a man who was no more. On January 26, 2020, Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, 6 family friends, and a helicopter pilot departed an airport in Orange County, California, headed toward Thousand Oaks, where one of Kobe's Mamba Sports Academy locations were, as he was coaching his daughter and their team in a basketball game there. At 9:06 a.m. Pacific Time, the helicopter departed, despite many warnings not to fly due to cloudy weather. The company that owned the aircraft, Island Express Holding Corp., had made a successful trip just the day before with no issues in just about 30 minutes, whereas driving from Bryant's home in Newport Beach to Thousand Oaks would have taken over 2 hours. The helicopter was not equipped with a black box, and due to the fog, was flying too low to be tracked by radar. However, records show the helicopter did stop intermittently due to LA's busy airspace, but also showed frantic behavior after that. Given the weather conditions and circumstances, you can imagine what happens next. Tributes poured in immediately, and the Los Angeles Clippers and Lakers game was postponed. Both Kobe and his daughter would be honored at most awards shows, such as the Oscars and Grammys. And 2 weeks later, their funeral was held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, and was hosted by Jimmy Kimmel, with many NBA players of Kobe's generation paying their respects. 1 year later, Kobe Bryant was posthumously inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame, with his widow Vanessa delivering an acceptance speech in her late husband's absence. And both the numbers 8 and 24 would be retired by the Lakers. It's an impossible task to summarize the life of someone like Kobe Bryant in a YouTube video. While what we said here summarizes many of the achievements of his life, we still couldn't capture it all. The story of his life can be written down on paper, but the legacy and impact of his work can only be felt and carried out in our hearts. As long as he remains within us, his legacy will carry on. Kobe won 5 out of 7 NBA championships, 2 Finals MVPs, 2 gold medals, was an All-Star 18 out of 20 seasons, and won 4 All-Star Game MVP awards, all on the same team. Did I mention he won an Oscar? As of 2022, all of that still edges out all of the dream team chasers of today. In a life full of broken records and championships, the unrelenting march of time is the only thing Kobe Bryant has yet to defeat. And with your help, Kobe Bean Bryant's impact can be carried on until the end of time. And on that note, thanks for watching. Subscribe to Labrise TV for more Modern Legends content. And be sure to comment what modern legend you'd like us to cover next.